Rey is not a Mary Sue. This is a very controversial topic, and I've covered a shorter version on my TikTok, but I wanted to do a fully fleshed out version for Squadron 7, and I understand that for fans of the sequel trilogy, this may be, or this always will be, a burden for you to bear when discussing the Star Wars universe with friends or with strangers online, especially strangers online. I held off on doing a video like this because I was waiting for the whole trilogy to come out, so I had all of the footage and all of the information available to me so that I could make a sound argument. So to start, I wanted to address the elephant in the room, the broadest and most controversial position as a whole. Rey is a Mary Sue in the broadest sense of the word. To better illustrate how I'm going to speak about this further, I'm going to analyze and demonstrate just how each respective protagonist did in their very first movies in their respective trilogies. Anakin Skywalker, 9 years old, built his own pod racer, won his first ever pod race, recruited into the Jedi Order as the Chosen One, helps retake the Theed Royal Palace, and destroys the droid control ship, saving the Gungan army. He does all of this piloting his first ever N1 starfighter in his first ever space battle. And while some may argue that this was accidental, I like to take the position that this was all the will of the Force. Luke Skywalker, 19 years old, meets Obi-Wan Kenobi, learns about the Force in about 5 minutes. Upon his first actual lesson with Obi-Wan, deflects his first laser blast with only "stretch out with your feelings" as the primary tutelage from Obi-Wan. He then goes on to fight in his very first space battle, piloting his very first X-Wing and making a 1 in a million shot on the Death Star.
Great shot, kid! That was 1 in a million!
Again, this isn't an accident, this was the will of the Force. On paper already, it would seem like Anakin and Luke are Mary Sues. Rey, 19 years old, abandoned on Jakku, finds Anakin's lightsaber, experiences a Force echo, seeing the lightsaber storied past, gets interrogated by Kylo Ren, in which their Force dyad is first bridged. During this time, Rey peers into Kylo's mind as the dyad is bridged, learning about Kylo's fears and of course some fundamental knowledge of the Force. She goes on to rout Kylo Ren in their battle on Starkiller. Now, most people would use this as an obvious catalyst for describing Rey as a Mary Sue. She had never used a lightsaber before. How could she possibly win against Kylo? Well, let's take a look at all the circumstances that led to this scenario. Rey had just lost an idol and a father figure in Han. Kylo Ren had gotten shot in the gut by a bowcaster rifle. Rey is acting out of fear, but also anger, which would strengthen her connection to the Force, presumably the dark side. Kylo bleeding out from the bowcaster wound, and before you even come close to saying blasters cauterize wounds, let me hit you with some facts. A bowcaster rifle fires a metal quarrel sheathed in plasma. The kinetic impact from said metal projectile would cause hemorrhaging of the surrounding organs and tissues, causing a bleed. You can see the blood running on the snow. Even if it were to cauterize the surface area, it was in the gut, and even when cauterized on impact, the clot wouldn't have enough time to stabilize due to high pressure vessels. We can see in this clip that even Obi-Wan's lightsaber can't keep Ponda Baba's arm from bleeding. Another factor in this duel is that Kylo Ren is constantly trying to undermine her and turn her. He's not trying to win, but because he's underestimating her, she has the time to commune with the Force that just exploded within her like hours earlier, and that is when she pushes Kylo Ren back, in addition to having already been wounded by Finn and the bowcaster rifle. For all the other nuances and minutiae, there's pretty airtight narrative explanations for it all. But let's go one step further and tackle every single point specifically. Number 1, Rey is an ace pilot. From this footage, we can see that she's winging it at best and is nowhere near Poe Dameron in skill. But beyond that, we know from the book Before the Awakening and the Rise of Skywalker Visual Dictionary, she learned from flight sims while scavenging derelict star destroyers. And she's been on Jakku for most of her life, surviving by herself as a scavenger, so you have a lot of time to learn about things and to practice on sims. Number 2, Rey has no training with a lightsaber. This is true, but we also know that she has very advanced survival instincts, having grown up alone on Jakku for most of her life, having to defend herself from raiders and bandits with just her bow staff. That, in addition to experiencing a Force echo with Anakin's lightsaber and sharing a Force dyad with Kylo, it's safe to say that she had inherited some basic fundamental knowledge. Also, when she first starts fighting, she's a complete mess with the lightsaber. And if we remember Luke's first time with a lightsaber, it only took a few words from Obi-Wan to get him to deflect laser blasts, and a few months of training with Yoda at best to challenge Vader. Even if you argue that Vader was toying with Luke and trying not to kill him and trying to turn him, it's the same exact allegory to what Kylo Ren is doing to Rey. So Luke challenging Darth Vader with only a minute amount of training from Yoda is the same as Rey going up against Kylo Ren. Vader could have easily destroyed Luke and Kylo Ren could have easily beat Rey, but the circumstances in the narrative didn't allow for that to happen. We have further confirmation in The Rise of Skywalker when Kylo clearly has the upper hand and is about to take the final blow when Leia intervenes. Number 3, Rey has no flaws. So this is a weak argument because it's obviously comparative to Luke and Anakin, but let's see here. She was abandoned at the age of 7 and had to fend for herself. Already, she has it worse than Luke or Anakin. Anakin, of course, being a slave, but very much around friends and family. Luke being around his aunt and uncle all his life. She goes on to lose an idol and father figure in Han, loses a master in Luke, loses a master and mother figure in Leia, is constantly pulled to the dark side by this torrent of energy she cannot explain until, of course, she learns about who she is, and is constantly trying to find her place in the galaxy. She thinks she's responsible for Chewie's death, and when she finds out that she's a descendant of a Dark Lord, it haunts her, and she's at a breaking point where she's willing to put herself in exile the same way Luke did, until Luke corrects her course. In conclusion, Rey just isn't a Mary Sue, and if she is, so is Anakin and Luke, because there's more narrative explanations for her growth as a character than there were for Luke. Let's take Luke. The first movie is a toss-up because he had at most a couple hours with Obi-Wan before he destroyed the Death Star in his first ever flight in an X-Wing, but from A New Hope to Empire Strikes Back, 3 years go by in which he hasn't met Yoda, and Obi-Wan had passed, yet he still grew as a Jedi in his own right, pulling his lightsaber with only just a rudimentary understanding of the Force. He goes on to train with Yoda, and based on the best estimates from some of the best lore masters of Star Wars, anywhere from 3 hours to 6 months. He cuts off his training to fight Vader and save Han and Leia. From there, in Return of the Jedi, he's suddenly a Jedi Knight. The original trilogy takes place over 4 years, with 3 of them being in between A New Hope and Empire. So within a year after facing Vader, with no Obi-Wan or Yoda, he had progressed to Jedi Knight. He eventually goes back to Yoda, but to witness Yoda passing. He never truly finished his training, nor did we ever get to see him train to become a Jedi Knight. And for all intents and purposes, we afforded him the benefit of the doubt because he was Luke Skywalker. We never questioned his power boost, and we assumed he had trained. But this forethought isn't afforded to Rey, even if we see her training with Luke, with Leia, and learning from the ancient texts dated 5,000 years old, and running training courses designed by Leia. Some people just cannot fathom how she can do what she can do, and even then, there will be those who say, oh, Anakin was the chosen one and Luke was his son. But to that I say, Rey was a Palpatine. Then there's this kid on Cantabite who has no training whatsoever, who uses a Force pull no problem. The point I'm trying to make with this kid is that you don't need the Jedi or Sith to train you. The Force is a power that can be understood just by trial and error. There are Force users in the galaxy of neither Jedi or Sith affiliation who are very strong. Take Bendu, for example, or the shaman who taught Qui-Gon the Force Ghost technique. Here's another example of Luke being untrained but showing a strong connection to the Force.
Let go, Luke.
The Force is strong in this one.
But this clip suggests that he's being guided by the Force, so why can't the Force guide Rey? To conclude this video, I'm going to end it with a quote from Kylo Ren to hammer down the point even further.
The scavenger resisted you.
She's strong with the Force.
Untrained but stronger than she knows.
Because Kylo understands that just like Anakin and Luke in their first movies, Rey too can be untrained and strong with the Force. Stronger than they even know. That'll be it for this video, guys. If you have any questions or comments, I'll be happy to engage in healthy debate in the comment section, but please try to keep it civil. But if you enjoyed this video and if it helped you in any way, shape, or form, please leave a like. And if you are new to this channel and want to see more from me, please subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you know when I post new videos. I cover The Mandalorian and The Clone Wars, and I will be releasing another video tomorrow for tomorrow's episode of The Clone Wars. But in any case, like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one, and of course, may the Force be with you.